Are we live?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Trending in Hollywood. I am Scott Menzel. I got dressed up for the occasion with my I Love Dogs t-shirt. And we are here to talk about the award ceremony, if you want to call it that, known as the 93rd Annual Academy Awards, what happened last night. We could not miss this opportunity to talk about this show. So Demetri is here.
It is a very special episode.
For this very special
Yes,
episode.
yes.
All right. So here we go. This was on yesterday, the Oscars. Now, let's begin really quick. Demetri, you did not watch any of the pre-show, right?
No, and the irony of it are you texted me rather, I don't want to say early in the morning, but it was late in the morning, or maybe it was early afternoon, going, I can't believe they're doing pre-show. And I was like, are they out of their minds? Pre-show for what?
Yeah. But I will say, and this is, and I'm going to be completely, you know how negative I was on this Oscars. We've kind of all been very, very negative towards this Oscars. And I watched the pre-show, and it was Lil Rel, and it was Ariana DeBose doing the pre-show red carpet. And I have to say, it was a nice change of pace from the traditional journalists doing the red carpet interviews. I felt like it was peers seeing peers and kind of being more normal and kind of awkward, which is kind of charming to watch them interact with one another. Like Reese Witherspoon, like awkwardly telling Ariana like how she used to like host stuff. Like I just thought like there was some weird moments there that was kind of like charming and awkward, and like I kind of appreciate this because everyone kind of felt really comfortable. And that's how I felt about the pre-show. I just really enjoyed the chemistry between everyone, and I just thought it was very natural, and it wasn't as phony and fake as it was in the past.
Were there pre-shows on other broadcast networks as well, or did they just say
one on E?
Okay. There usually is one on E. Okay.
And then I don't know what other networks they were on. I just know that I was watching the ABC one because obviously a member of our organization, Clayton Davis, was there doing a lot of the pre-show stuff. It was weird. They tried to do it almost like, I don't know if you guys ever remember this, or Demetri, if you even know about this, but they used to do this Rotten Tomatoes panel like at Comic-Con and at various places.
Yeah.
Where they had like people, and they had like the mass of people.
Fresh and right.
Fresh.
Yep.
And it was strange because during the pre-show, they had like other people offering commentary, but they weren't there. So they would have like these cutouts of the people's faces. And so people would like put them over their faces. And I was like, this is very strange. But
it's kind of what they did with like Major League Sports, where they had instead of playing in full audiences, they had flat people. They had cardboard cutouts, and like people could pay like $150 or $200, send a picture, and they'd make a flat cardboard image of them and put it in a chair. And people were like, they were just like frozen. And so it made it look like there was almost a crowd.
Yeah, it was an interesting pre-show, but I thought it was a nice change of pace. So I'm going to let's start off with the positives first. Now, going into the ceremony, what did you like about the ceremony as it kicked off?
I liked Union Station and how it was set up. I mean, Union Station, for those who are unaware, is a built in the could have been 20s, 30s, 40s. It's a train station but it's beautiful on the inside. If you're familiar, it's been in a lot of movies. I mentioned this in our last podcast. If you're familiar with the movie Blade Runner, Deckard, he goes through Union Station, is where the headquarters are. And so you have these beautiful vaulted arched ceilings. It looks very 40s, which I love that look. And they dressed it up rather nicely. And I liked how they had the stage set up. And I also appreciated no podium. You know, I know it's a little thing. But I kind of appreciated it. Obviously they didn't want to have a podium because they don't want people touching anything, right?
Yeah.
Which I think Frances McDormand pretty much ruined that, because that's where she was touching the Oscar stand.
but then they left the Oscar on the thing. Yeah.
So, so I really appreciated what they did to the outside and the inside. I watched it with a couple of people, and somebody asked, like, is that the way it really looks in the outside? I'm like, no, it does not. I go, they did a lot of work. It looked like an outside patio lounge. And trust me, if they converted it, they'd probably get a lot of people. But I enjoyed that. I liked how people they kind of had to stand up to give their speeches or whatever it was, because they weren't boxed by the typical podium. So I enjoyed the setting. It did make things seem more intimate. And I was thinking, God, what if we stop going to like a Dolby Theater and do things here? Because number one, it cuts things down. But then I was thinking, I kind of missed the orchestra, which we'll go into a little bit later. I don't know where you fit that, but I did enjoy the layers too that they utilized there. So that for me was the best part of the show. It was the setting. They did a nice job. Very nice job.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, for the first like 30 minutes of the show, I pretty much fell in love with the whole setting. From the pre-show on to the actual opening of the show, I thought it felt very small and intimate. And I realize, and again, this is something that I will fully admit. We talk about this a lot on any of the episodes of this show, if you've ever watched it. We always talk about the difference between regular people and like people on film Twitter or people in the industry. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge disconnect there. So for me, when I was watching the show for the first 30 minutes or so, I was in love with the show because it made me feel like I was almost like I was at the Hollywood Critics Association award show, where it was very small and intimate. And I got to kind of see all the celebrities right there. And I felt like I was a fly on the wall, right? And it was kind of like, it was nice to see that. But then I kind of realized, because more and more I was texting with you, Demetri, and I was texting with a few other people, is that I like that because I'm used to these things. I see these things all the time. So to me, there's a disconnect when I see a Dolby Theater and I see people so spread out and everyone's in the back and up in the balcony and stuff like that. We all know how big that place is. So there's that disconnect for us, we were kind of like, oh, this feels really nice. And I noticed a lot of people within our industry were posting on Twitter, like, I love the feel of this, kind of like you were just saying, nice and intimate. It looks really nice. Do we really have to go back to the Dolby? But the problem then became that it didn't have any entertainment value. No. So you had no montages. You had very little video footage. You had very little audio footage. You had really nothing to really go on from an entertainment standpoint, besides Disney shamelessly incorporating themselves every chance they get. And that was really all you had.
Yeah. and that feeling, that setting, that old school Hollywood, that went away like as soon as the first person came on and just rattled on and set such a tone for the rest of the show. They're really, outside of a few speeches, which I know we'll talk about.
Yeah,
it was Dullsville, and I found it to be antithetical to. They forgot how to entertain. And the Oscars, first and foremost, need to entertain. And part of it was the audience. The audience seemed like they were being held hostage, at least a lot of them. They really did. I mean, that camera was going down the aisle looking at tables, and people were like they were like on a most wanted list. They were like, yeah, keep going. Like, they were the angriest mob. Like, I was thinking, God, these are the angry astronauts in First Man. They were so upset. Like, they almost like, I would rather be anywhere else but here right now. There was no energy in that room. And, I got to say that the politics sucked the life out of a lot of what was going on. And as hard as they tried, the one time they tried to inject any kind of levity, we kind of found out that it was fake. And that really bummed me out and made me angry. And then, of course, the end. I actually thought I missed something. I texted you and go, did I miss something? Soderbergh tried to do a twist ending on us, forgetting that he's actually doing an award show and not like The Sixth Sense,
or
Ocean's 11. Yeah. Like, it's like, no, what are you doing? And that just made me angrier and angrier. And I've been saying since the first time they tried the hostless Oscar experiment, saying, no bueno. It doesn't work. Like, because like 2 nights before, we were watching the Independent Spirit Awards.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, this is as close to what the Oscars used to be when Hollywood had a sense of humor about themselves. And they seem to have lost a sense of humor about themselves. There really were no jokes. And God, I kind of missed the playoffs, meaning the band playing people off. Like, we used to think that it was rude, but now I'm thinking, God, where's that DJ? Like, you got to be playing people off here. Yeah, it was flat. It was boring. It was not entertaining whatsoever. And they didn't even try. And what's worse is they promised us a celebration of movies. And to me, it was a celebration of boring. They didn't celebrate movies at all. It was very agenda based, which is fine. But we could talk about all that.
Yeah.
In a bit, but I
mean, Demetri, I listen. I was 100% on board. I mean, I know I'm in the minority here, but for like a good portion of the show, I was kind of on board with it because, again, I'm looking at it from a year of Zoom award ceremonies and watching Zoom stuff. And I'm trying to separate it from a traditional type ceremony. Mm-hmm. And when I look at the last 2 or 3 years of the Oscars, even though I felt more love and more passion for the movies that were nominated, the award ceremony itself has been going so downhill. Like, it's just been dull and boring. So the change of environment and the focus, for me, it worked. And the problem ultimately is when I started thinking about it, and I was texting with you and other people, there was like, there's no entertainment here, and that there's not a celebration of movies. It's really just a celebration of people in the room. And that works great Like that show would have been amazing, I'm sure, for the people in the room. Like the people, if there was no cameras there and it was just them, I bet you everyone would have had like the time of their freaking lives, because it would have been just like they would have fun just interacting with one another and conversating. But with the focus on the camera coming there, and that's the thing. Well, we've learned this too about doing award ceremonies, is that as soon as you get a camera on there and someone knows that it's going there on cable or wherever, the personality switches. It becomes like, oh, other people are going to see this. So in the beginning, you started seeing like there was this very natural, like Emerald came on and she accepted her award and she just kind of like went and did whatever she wanted to do. And it was nice. And so did Daniel Kaluuya. And it was great seeing that. And I mean, even Yoo Jung-yoon did that to a degree. I think she had one of the best speeches of the night in terms of just being fun and having, just enjoying it. But then you go into those other ones where like they're very, very serious, like the Two Distant Strangers, like again, powerful moments in speeches, but like it just feels, God, we're living this every day. We hear stories about this, and I just like, where's the entertainment? Where's the video clip? Where's the fun? And one of the things that I want to add real quick before I let you go, it's just that. When we did that, and again, I'm no expert. I'm not saying it was a great ceremony or whatever, but I'm just saying one of the things that I knew that when we were doing a ceremony this year, I knew that we would have to rely very heavily on video clips. Video clips and images needed to be at the forefront of the ceremony, because you know what? There was not the ability for the members of the organization to kind of get on stage and make it entertaining. They basically got on there, they announced who the nominees were, and they got the hell off. So we added so much more video content, and that, yes, it took up a big chunk of the show time, probably 30 minutes of video content, but it was entertaining. You were allowed to say, when you see visual effects, we had a clip of Birds of Prey with cars blowing up and people doing flips, and you say, oh, that's why that's nominated. Not someone explaining to us why we love visual effects. So you kind of need those things, and I'm very surprised with movie makers behind the scenes doing this that they didn't incorporate that.
Scott, you hit the nail on the head, and I'm going to add to that why it's so important. So you talked about HCA, and one of the very special things that happened at the Hollywood Critics Association was there were a lot of great videos, but there was our opening montage, which was beautiful and inspiring, and it made you feel, yeah, this is why I'm a movie fan, right? And then think about how our show would have been had we not had the video for The Rock, which we showcased, and his reaction, right? But even more importantly, speaking specifically about the Academy Awards, there was an article, I believe it was in Variety, not too long ago, where they did a survey, and a survey of how many people are aware or even know or familiar with the movies that are nominated for the Academy Award, and only 31% were even aware of the nominated movies, like Nomadland Go. If you heard of Nomadland, if you heard of Minari or Promising Young Woman, 30%. Meaning, if you're not showing video clips, the rest, that's 70%, has no effing idea as to what this movie is about or anything. They've got no reference point. And that, too, I think is a very important part of an award ceremony, because for people who may not have seen the movie, it's perfect advertisement. It's sly advertisement, and it shows something. It shows dialogue. It could show action. It could show science fiction special effects. It could show comedy. It could make an audience laugh, and it'll go, even if a person hasn't seen the movie, they'll go, hey, wow, that movie does look good. I might even go get it, even if the movie doesn't win the award. To not have anything and to have it read like a book on audible.com. I don't want Laura Dern telling me how special this person is or what. the Aaron Sorkin working behind a concession stand selling popcorn, that was part of the Barbara Walters interview. That's where I learned about that stuff. But they don't do those interview shows anymore, which I don't understand why, because that was a great way to get to know some of these people. I don't care while I'm watching an award show. That's all self-indulgent brouhaha. And that's the other thing too. We're talking about a schism of people or faction of people that for the most part, they don't like to be, they're very insecure already. So when you're telling, oh, this person was so great, well, that's part of the reason why they're probably so pissed off and they're putting their head down.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting to see a clip of a performance. Like they did it a couple of times and sometimes the clips are okay. Sometimes they didn't. But Scott, how many times, even in the worst of Oscar moments, that opening montage could actually work?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, okay. To not have that in this, especially now, where so few people knew what the hell the movies were. I'm sorry. I think you really needed video clips, and you needed to show the special effects. You needed to show editing. I know maybe for us it gets boring, but if you're trying to build audience, that repetitive nature, there could be newcomers coming on that might really not know what sound editing is all about. Remember Whiplash? Remember how they broke that down? That to me, growing up and watching Oscar when they would do cinematography and editing and they did those great videos, I felt like, oh, wow, that's cool. Oscar is teaching me something that I didn't know. And it made Oscar cooler to watch. And without this stuff and having Halle Berry tell me the importance of cinematography, listen, as talented and as exquisite as she is, it just doesn't do it justice when I'm not watching a specific movie that's up for the award and why it was so important.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting. So watching this again, why I particularly enjoyed it is that it felt different from all the Zoom shows. So I think if they were going for that, if that's all that they were going for, they did achieve that. It didn't feel like a Zoom show.
Oh no.
But the problem for me is, and this is the same thing we've been talking about, is that by not having the entertainment value, what was the point of doing this live? I would have much rather have seen them do a show and kind of cut it together and have a nice, finely tuned show that would have ran about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And they still could have made it different. They could have done everything the same way, but they just needed to take out the live element so they could incorporate those things that would have added the more entertainment value to it. Because again, I'm praising them for the fly on the wall type of setting. I'm praising them for that. But again, this is not just about we the lovers of in entertainment journalism or the filmmakers or the film, or the film connoisseurs. This is about the average person from all around the world who is watching the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
they don't know what it's like to be in a room and see this or go to an event like we do.
No.
So for us, it kind of feels special, but for everyone else, they're kind of like, what the hell am I doing? So by the end of the night, and after that train wreck of a fucking third act, that's when I sort of I kind of said to myself, like, all right, now I understand why people don't average people find this boring and average people don't like this at all, because there's nothing coming from it. And it just, final 30 minutes was just like a disaster. I don't even know. I mean, Demetri, you wanted to talk about this, how there was this hint of like there was going to be a karaoke thing, and then there was this Oscar trivia thing that served as like a kind of great breakup that you were almost wondering, why is this happening in the last 30 minutes and not like somewhere in the middle? First of all, that was my question originally. And then I immediately thought to myself, oh my God, something is happening. Something bad happened that they couldn't like figure this out. So they put this in. So they put this in. And, but yes. Demetri, you told me something about the Variety article, which I didn't even read, and that it was all fixed. It was all staged.
Yeah. I want to go back one thing because you mentioned something about had they not done the show the way they did and they just put it together, right? Scott, I mean, they took out all of the entertainment. They take out all of the video, right? They take out the orchestration. They really, I mean, to say that it's bare bones isn't is not enough. I mean, it was as bare bones as any award show that I've seen this year. Okay. And the show still came in at over 3 hours long. Yeah. How the hell does that happen? You've got no video, no montage. I mean, so this is what happens when you let the people talk on and on and on. And you had 2 humanitarian awards. And it's still over 3 hours long. See, even Brady was barking. He was actually snoring. So yes, if you folks are interested, if you go to variety.com, you'll find this article, called Oscar Secrets. Behind the decisions to change the show order, air fewer clips, and bring in Da Butt. And let's talk about Da Butt. Because I remember texting you around this point, Scott. This is the scene where they were playing Oscar movie music trivia. And under normal circumstances, or as a game night for film fans, this might have been a fun idea. To recap, who was the gentleman that was going around? It was the guy who was Daniel Kaluuya in
it's Little Rel.
Little Rel. So Little Rel is walking around and he's supposed to be going to people's tables, and they had Oscars. They had music queued up, and the question was it a nominated song? Did it win the Academy Award, or none of the above? So you had 3 choices. So this whole thing starts off, and the first woman, they did Purple Rain.
Right. It was Andrea Day. They did
Andrea Day. And Jesus, it was, I was like, what the hell is this show now has come to a complete stop. Like, why are we doing this? Why now? Like, I just want this over with. Like, just move along. And it wasn't funny because we as the audience really don't get anything for playing. And for most people, they're probably already tuned out, and they're not going to really get what's going on. Like, it wasn't an audience kind of a thing. And we get to, he goes to Daniel Kaluuya, who had Last Dance, right? Yeah. Last Dance from Donna Summer. Just Dance.
Yeah.
Donna Summer. And he was unfamiliar with the song, and he was sitting at the same table as Glenn Close. And you overhear Glenn Close, oh my God, he's too young for that. And that was actually really funny, right? And he whiffs, he swings and misses on it, and it was kind of funny. But then they go to Glenn Close. Now, at this point, one of the people in the room, I only had 2 people, I was watching the Oscars with 2 people, said, this seems really set up. And I was like, really? I said, I don't know. And then they do the Butt song. And right off the bat, I'm like, I don't recall this song at all. And I have an okay memory. Like, the hardest part of that game for me was okay, was it nominated? And was it nominated, or actually did it win? But this song I didn't recognize from any movie that I could recall. So I was like, this song wasn't even nominated. And then all of a sudden, Glenn Close goes into a whole history of this. And the way that she did it too was like, it was almost like mnemonic memory. She was like, okay, so this year, okay, this is in Spike Lee's movie, and this and the butt and what, and she's going on. She goes, okay, and no, the song was never nominated. It was never nominated. Never. So if it wasn't nominated, never won. And she got the answer right. And I sat there going, wow. And then she gets up and she does the butt. They go, oh, can you do the butt? She goes, oh yeah, she does the butt. So I texted you going, okay, this is the funniest moment of the Oscars, because to me, in that moment, I felt that I learned something about Glenn Close, because we don't know. Well, here's why. A lot of these people we never know anything about. So we don't know how steeped they are into film history, right? We don't.
That's true. It's true.
Right? We don't know exactly who exactly are movie fans. Like, yes, Quentin Tarantino. Yes, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg. There are some, but somebody like Glenn Close, I've never heard her talk about film the way she talked about how she figured out the butt. Right? So I bought into it. I go, you know what? I just saw a different side of Glenn Close. She knows movie history. She's obviously a fan. She pays attention to the Oscars. I go, okay, and now she's dancing. I'm going, wow, this is the best part. This is the most levity and lightness I've seen. And then I read this article this morning. And the question was, karaoke was originally considered until producers settled on the Oscar music quiz segment late in the show. And I was, first off, that answered the question, because when Frances McDormand, when she goes, we should have done the karaoke booth, I was like, what the hell is she talking about?
Yeah, me too.
Like, I was like, she's in her Birkenstocks or whatever. What is she talking karaoke? Like, this makes no sense. I read the article today. Oh, of course it makes sense. That's what they were telling people they might do. But then the kicker. Yes. And I quote, yes, Glenn Close knew she'd be grilled about the butt by Little Ray Howery. To the person in my group's credit who said it was staged, I talked to that person today and said, you were right. And it deflated me so much to know, but her dance moves took nearly everyone by surprise. Ooh. So that whole segment was staged. And I'm like, that's, you know, on one hand, you can give props to Glenn Close for being a fantastic actress, because she sold me. But to learn that whole thing was staged, I was like, F this show. F this show. I got angrier and angrier about this. So I was like, was the banter between her and Kaluuya staged? Like, it's just, no, I was very upset at that. And yeah, she knew she was going to be grilled on that particular song.
Yeah.
And where's the fun in that? Like, you just ruined the magic.
Right. Well, did they ruin the magic, or is it the fact that Variety ruined the magic?
Variety, with this article, for me, ruined the magic. I would have gone on to believe that. I'm not saying that Glenn Close isn't a film historian or a fan of watching the Oscars or music, but now I'll never know. Right. Because I know nothing about her.
Of course, because it's Hollywood, baby, and it's all smoke and mirrors.
All smoke and mirrors.
You know, I would just say, you know, like, I thought that moment was very funny. I mean, the problem for me is that every time there was a good moment, I felt like it was like 30 minutes before the next one. So, like, you had the Daniel Kaluuya moment, and then you had Yoo Jung-yoon, and then you had Tyler Perry, and then you had that moment, and then you had everything that happened after that, which is when I wanted to, like, set my TV on fire. because that's when they decided that they were going to do Best Picture. And then the last 2 acting categories.
Would you please tell everybody the text I sent you?
Oh my God.
Because we're sitting there going, what did we miss? Like, wow, how come we didn't see like Anthony Hopkins or Carrie Welly? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I texted you. And I was like, well, I can paraphrase. It was something to the effect.
I got it. That was amazing. I'm shitting in a bucket right now. Did I miss something? Where is Best Actress and Actor? It's after this. Why? Did they want everyone to tune out? That's the dumbest thing. Yeah. I mean, listen, it was so dumb on so many levels because, first of all, the people who they picked to win, number one, I mean, and this was another thing someone else spoiled today, was that Anthony Hopkins must have knew that he was going to win or whatever, because there was an article that came out that said that he would come in, send in a Zoom thing. And they were like, no. So instead, they would rather just end without having any speech at all, because a guy who's like, what, 80 years old, didn't want to jump on a plane to go fly for a 3-hour event. Okay, who can really blame the guy when he's been there 100 million times?
Oh, absolutely.
So
but it was... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And then Frances McDormand howling at the moon, upset, and everyone was kind of like, what the hell? And listen, I love Frances McDormand, but like, I will say this with all sincerity. Out of those other 4 nominees, even Andrea Day, which I hated that movie that she was in, and she was great. She was great in the movie, but the movie's terrible. Every single one of these people deserve that award more. So, like, to kind of go from that to slap Chadwick Boseman's widower in the face by giving it to Anthony Hopkins, who couldn't show up, and they didn't want to give him a speech. It was such a massive misfire.
Oh, the whole thing. It's like, Scott, because regarding Anthony Hopkins, and we may have read it in the same article, Olivia Colman was to accept on his behalf.
No, but that was debunked. That was debunked.
Okay. So they just cut. It's like, oh, okay, we're over. We're done. Bye. Hope you had a good night, everybody. And I sit there going, what just happened? Yeah. I'm like, and then I texted you going, oh, well, the music industry is inspired by the Oscars. Now the headlining act's going to come out first, and then the opening acts are going to follow them. And let's see how that works out. The movie industry is going to start marketing movies the way they did when the trailer was first invented, and they're going to play it after the movie. Hence, the word trailer was invented. And so they're going to start playing the trailers. Let's see how well that works out for marketing. People don't even stick around for the credits. And Steven Soderbergh is a filmmaker. If anything, you would think that he understands the importance of a good ending. And the Oscars, and again, I read an article, not 100%, let's just say about 98% of the time, have ended on Best Picture.
Yeah.
That's what people stick around for. That's the suspense. That's what we're waiting for. That's what the studios are waiting for. And then they did it, and then we're going to do Best Actor and Best Actress. At that point,
it was almost like they listened to film Twitter. I mean, I don't know if you followed this the night before. No, I kid you not.
No.
I kid you not. The night before, people were like, oh, Best Actress should go last. It's the one we don't know who's going to win. And then, like, literally seeing it happen, I was like, oh, my God. Is the Academy literally listening to film Twitter now on how to run a show? Did they just go to him and be like, hey, switch this? I could not. I'm telling you, I was not only was I speechless they switched the orders, but how underwhelming those 3 awards in a row were. I mean, It literally, like, everyone was saying Nomadland. So Best Picture was a total like blowout and like kind of like, of course. Then instead of like picking someone like unique for Best Actress, who you would kind of get excited for if it was Andrea Day or Viola or even Vanessa Kirby, they were like, no, let's go with the least exciting person and we'll pick Frances McDormand. And then we'll end with awkward Joaquin Phoenix, who's always awkward. Why close an award show with Joaquin Phoenix is beyond me. I love the guy, but again, he's awkward as hell. And then have no one there to accept. I mean, it was just like it was hilarious. I mean, it felt like the Golden Globes all over again. You remember the Golden Globes was the same way. It fell apart in the last 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I was so angry. I kicked my guests out of the house, and they're like, "Oh, well, now get the F out. Just leave. Don't talk to me. I'll throw my remote at you. Just leave." It was that bad. And again, we talked a little bit about this morning, right? What happened? I always thought that it was kind of cool that you had in the past. You would have had last year's Best Actor, the person who won, give out the Best Actress, and vice versa. You'd have Best Actress give out the Best Actor award, and the same work for the supporting, right? And they usually let off the awards. It's like, let's start off with something kind of big that people might know about, right? Am I right about that? There was sort of early on, right?
Yep.
And one more thing, with Hollywood being, we're all about causes, and this show was all about agenda. Why wouldn't you have the ladies go last? Why wouldn't you have the actresses? Why wouldn't you have that last? Why do you anchor it with the male award? It shows some anchor it with the female award. Like, they blew this in so many levels, and again, you just, why? There was no reason for, even if Nomadland, it's the last thing, it wins. I would have just been like, okay, whatever. Let me find that bucket to continue shitting in, and we'll call it a night. But that's like, everybody was like, oh, but instead we get Best Picture, and then after that I was like, I don't care, and apparently nobody else did either, because they either didn't watch or they had tuned out, according to the ratings. But so we should talk about speeches for a sec before we talk about ratings, because no, seriously, listen, I did, now I have intrinsic value to having an orchestra start playing the music and kind of playing off. Before, I used to laugh and I used to go, oh my God, that was so rude. That poor person didn't even get to really talk. But now I realize how much it benefits us. However, we would have missed out, I think, one of the more heartfelt speeches, which was from the director of Another Round, which was my pick, and I really love that movie. Had they played him off, we would have never got the story about his daughter. And we never really would have gotten that true story of the making of that movie. And I'm really glad for that instance that he didn't get played off. What an amazing, I mean, what an emotional, amazing stuff. What an emotional speech. I started welling up. I can't even imagine. And his dedicating the movie and the Oscar because it was a movie about life. Wow, that was an amazing speech.
Yeah, it was.
Like what he did. These are the nuggets that in a good award show like ends up being talked about, but it was so little talked about today about this, and it's sad to me. Kaluuya, as you said, gave a really good speech. He's talking about his mom, but he was great.
Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry. I think Tyler Perry, without question, gave the best speech of the night. One that talked about not what it meant to be inclusive and what it meant to love everyone equally and to stop hating people just based on what media tells you to do. I don't hate the police. I don't hate Asian people. I don't hate white people. Something that I feel very, very strongly about now is we go into this putting people in boxes. It was so refreshing to hear someone who I actually personally admire, and I've always loved Tyler Perry as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, as a visionary, is that he's a very real person. He's a very real person and who's came from nothing. I mean, really, you listen to that guy's story, you read about him. That's someone who literally was homeless, who lived with no one, with no lights on and, no power, it's incredible rags to riches story for him. Mm-hmm. And to see him go above and beyond for so many people during the pandemic, before the pandemic, giving people opportunities for working in the films and TV shows. He's a trailblazer. He's a trailblazer. He's an incredible person. And just listening to him speak and try to break down boxes, which is something mm-hmm. that almost every other speech that night, I hate to say it, just felt like they were talking about themselves or their group. That was the only speech where I literally felt like I said to myself, wow, he's talking about everyone. Everyone should be loved equally.
And Scott, furthermore, my favorite parts of his speech were, there were two, refuse hate.
Refuse hate, yeah.
Right? Refuse hate. Meet me in the middle. Meet me in the middle. I will meet you in the middle. Let's talk about this. And it was so impassioned that it didn't feel political because of his experience. And when he talked about that woman that he met after a night of shooting, and he found that woman in the corner. And he
with the shoes, right?
Some shoes. Mm-hmm. Yep. It was impactful. It was very nice. It was a very well impassioned speech, and it was very potent. And he did a wonderful, fantastic job. It was probably the speech highlight and the most inspiring too. I just love the refused hate.
Yeah. So I mean, I love that aspect of it too. I mean, it just felt so genuine. And I'm not saying like Regina King opening up the show and talking about like the like the understanding that she knew that she was going into like, hey, we know that people don't like when the Oscars get political. And then she made the point about being a Black person and having a son.
Right.
And you know what? In that moment, I was like, you know what? Regina King, 100%. I agree with you. I know what you're talking about. Like, and you're right. You deserve to use this platform as your moment to say that. And I think a lot of people would agree with you. The problem is just that when you start hearing that repeated throughout the night, it loses the effect. It very much feels like how I felt about a lot of the movies. They were just so downers and downers and downers that as they went on and on and on, I just kind of said, okay, all right. Yeah, I know it's great that this is happening. I know what this means, but it's just like, can't we just acknowledge that and just move on and actually talk about like what it was like to work on this movie, why it was such a great treat to work on this movie, as opposed to like what this means. And again, maybe this is where the disconnect comes from being a white guy, but it's also the reason why they have an all-time low rating, because of the fact that like people don't care about these movies, and then they don't want to hear people talking about these stories that are already depressing that they turn on and listen to in the news every single day for the last 365 days.
Right. And only, again, 31% were aware of what the Oscar nominated movies were. There was a time where Oscar really put the hammer down if anybody talked politics. Richard Gere got in a ton of trouble. He was banned from even coming back to but to give out an award because he did his thing. And because people, and I myself was included in that camp growing up watching Oscars. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to celebrate the movies. I wanted to be entertained. I didn't care Richard Gere doing his thing, and it was troublesome. And today, I think, well, the cat's out of the bag. It's not gonna happen. But they have to somehow try to bring things back so that Oscar becomes entertaining again.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
And somebody is saying, it shows big Shima, I believe is how it is. It shows how racist America is when the most diverse Oscars ever and no one watched. It wasn't necessarily, this hadn't really nothing to do with diversity. I think it had, because 70 to 75% of the people had no idea of the movies, where to find them, how to watch them. They just didn't know. They didn't care. So, and when you're not showing clips, it's hard to put a reference on what this movie really is all about. It had a ton of diversity, but Scott, shortly thereafter, you sent me a text going, "Here we go," and people were already complaining that it wasn't diverse enough.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't win.
You can't win. And I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, normally I would agree. Like, I mean, yes, most of America, and I fully agree with this. I think that about 40 out of the 50 states is probably made up of more people who are racist than aren't racist. And I don't know if that's a real statistic. I'm just pulling numbers out of my butt. But if you were to ask me based on like traveling and going places, I would say that outside of like major metropolitan areas like a Chicago, a LA, a New York, an Austin, Texas, all those other places surrounding them, like they're not as, I don't know, accepting of others, whether it's LGBTQ
right.
or blacks or Asians, Latinos, lots of racism in America. There's no hiding that. I don't know if I would tie the viewership to this as racism. I honestly would tie the viewership to this as bad movies not bad movie. I don't even want to say bad movies. Movies that had the unfortunate opportunity to come out during a year where they didn't fit the tone of the year, like where they fit the tone of the year so badly that no one wanted to watch them,
right?
And that they didn't have an avenue for people to discover them, and no one was seeking them out. That's more or less what I think the problem is. I almost wonder in another year if I would have disliked Nomadland as much as I do now, just because of how many sad, mopey movies I saw. And I just didn't really like it because I wanted something that made me feel better. I mean, there's still, I don't think I'll ever love that movie, even if it was in a different year, but I do wonder if I would be a little bit more forgiving of it than I was this year.
It's a great point. And you and I have discussed this, and
yeah.
2 quick points about that. This is why some of the bigger studio, more commercial films, right? And in a given year, we have more commercial movies, and I'm not even necessarily talking franchise movies, but we have more commercial movies out there that temper the independent movies like Nomadland, so that we'll go see, the big action flick, or we'll go see the comedy, or we'll go see the horror movie. And then when you go to see a Nomadland looks different from those, and you kind of appreciate the break. Right. So I agree with you, Scott. I think I may have looked at Nomadland a little bit differently had it been a normal year. I think it would have played differently for sure from a theatrical standpoint, only because of all the good reviews that it was getting. So it would have had a great run at the art houses, and then probably make its way into like AMC selects and things like that. So when you have a variety of movies they temper those depressing movies. And you can sort of take it because you'll watch Nomadland, you'll go, okay, yeah, I get it. And then the next night, you're going to go see a big action movie. So it kind of washes that away. You don't forget Nomadland, but you have something to go to. That's why Godzilla vs. Kong was, I think, so well received. It was just a break from the norm of what we've been getting, a steady diet of depressing movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of comments on this.
Yes.
So Yash said, in many ways, it is slightly racist. American Sniper, Dances with Wolves, The Hurt Locker, lots of Middle American war Western movies thrive because of Middle America. I do agree with that.
But Hurt Locker, up until last night, Hurt Locker was the lowest grossing movie in Oscar history.
No,
people didn't even go see.
No, Moonlight.
It was Moonlight because I thought it was
100% Moonlight. 100%.
What did Moonlight make? Because Hurt Locker was like nothing. It made less than
two circus peanuts. I mean, seriously, the box office on Moonlight was like so low. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, people didn't see like Hurt Locker, and I think that. Yeah, and I agree. It's not a race thing. That's what we were trying to say earlier. That I don't think that this is about race. I just think it was about the movies that nobody could really find, nor did they want to, only because we lived a year of hell. And we don't need movies to remind us how hellacious life could be, because that's what we had. Seriously. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But there are. Yeah.
I'm trying to find that article of what that was. Oh no,
which one?
Demetri is 100% right. It's actually Moonlight was right after it.
Oh, okay.
Hurt Locker was number 1. Moonlight was number 2.
So
the lowest grossing movies of all. Now it's not. Now
it's Nomadland
gets to have that title.
Yay!
Here you go, Nomadland.
Yay! Yeah. Yep. And Hurt Locker, yes, was directed Catherine Bigelow. Again, I always think that the Oscars, and we've talked about this, and this is where they have their problem right now. When it was just 5 nominated pictures, I think movies were more in tune with the zeitgeist of pop culture. Because let's face it, movies are very much steeped into pop culture. So you had more popular movies. More people went to the movies regularly in the 80s and the 90s when Oscar pulled in some pretty hefty, serious ratings. And then you had hosts as well. So when you don't play to that pop culture, and then you add 10, we've had this. I think the adding of 10 is ridiculous because, as nice as it was that Black Panther got nominated, we all kind of knew in our hearts it's not going to win. But it should be pop movies or big commercial movies. To me, I see no reason why they can't be nominated. And kind of Oscar used to do that. Like that's how Silence of the Lambs won. It was a pretty decent box office gross. That's how a Lord of the Rings won, which is a huge box office gross. That's how Titanic won, or Forrest Gump won. Now, whether you like the movies or not, that's a different story. They were nominated for Best Picture and they won. And people could get behind it because people knew what the movie was. And 9 out of 10 times they saw them. Braveheart's another great example.
Yeah.
A lot of people love Braveheart.
I mean, Gladiator. So many, yeah.
They don't pick those movies anymore. So that I think is a problem.
Yeah, I agree. All right. And then just to kind of close this out, just so we kind of talked about this. And I mean, Demetri, how many weeks ago did I predict this and you predict this?
Oh my God.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, this was the most I mean, I don't even know the word. Like it was just like there was the least shocking thing I've freaking read in like probably an entire year. because this just, I mean, you can see it last night. And I mean, I try to stay off Twitter as much as I can, but someone who runs a critics organization, someone who runs an entertainment website, I have to kind of be on there. And I was just watching it last night and I was like, wow, nothing is trending. Like, it's just like nothing is trending. So I knew this was coming way before last night because of all the things we already discussed about people not knowing about these movies, the fact that the movies were so sad, the fact that there was no theatrical. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But, this is just kind of like, people are saying, and I don't know if you read this, but a lot of people are saying they don't know if the Oscars are going to be able to recover from this.
I don't know. I mean, we joked about how bad it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I think it was even worse than what we could have joked about. I didn't think it was below 10. Like, you're talking 9. That's miserable. It's horrible. Look, they really need to retool things. They need a host. We need comedy and levity. The Oscars brought comedy and levity. And as a movie fan, as a kid growing up in the 80s, which is when I started watching the Oscars in earnest, I had such a great time watching them. It was great. It was fun. The clips, the montages, some of the speeches, of course. And this is why I really enjoyed the Independent Spirit Awards this year. I'm glad that I watched them. That Melissa, that the comedian who's, I guess, an SNL, she did a job that to me was very reminiscent of Oscar of old, particularly Billy Crystal, where she inserted herself into a movie that Billy Crystal always used to do, right? And that was part of the fun. And there was a levity. And yeah, you always expected a dance number or a music number to bomb. It didn't happen always, but there was always one, and it was great. Yeah. It was great conversation the next day, right? But I just think they need to go back to that format. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel was practically like begging, like, he did like a commercial for his show outside of the Dolby Theater. Yeah, they have to retool. They have to revamp. But first and foremost, the Academy, the Oscar, the entertainment business, they have to find a sense of humor again. They can't be all so serious about themselves. I'm not saying you need a host that's as acerbic as a Ricky Gervais, but you need a host that's going to poke fun at these people and they're going to laugh at themselves, and that there's going to be more of a majority of people laughing at themselves, so that the one belligerent guy looks like a fool when he's not happy, because that's funny for America. They also have to take note, and I'm not saying add the category of blockbuster picture, but they have to be more in tune with people. There are good commercial films out there. And there are plenty of independent movies, and I watch a lot of them lately that kind of stink too. So they have to have their finger on the pulse, and remember that good pictures can exist in commercial movies as well as independents. So don't you agree? I mean,
no, I do. I think, I mean, I know this is a controversial thing to say, but I think when you focus so heavily on ripping down things and having an agenda about lifting other things up, you cause this natural hatred and this natural, I don't know, the divisiveness where people just stop listening. Because we in film Twitter and our film community is very guilty of this. Yeah. For years, we've had straight men playing a gay character. This year, all of a sudden, The Prom was reviews for The Prom first came out. People loved The Prom. all of a sudden film Twitter started getting on it, shitting on it. Oh, James Corden, how the hell we do this? Blah, blah, blah. I hate James Corden. Blah, 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 blah. And they take the messaging of the movie, which is very hopeful and happy and kind of universal and something that I think a lot of people would be able to appreciate, and basically make me feel like I'm guilty for liking something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that as someone who loves film, and I'm in the community. So as an outsider, I can understand why people turn this stuff off when they see a movie that universally was loved, like a Bohemian Rhapsody, and people within the film community are like, oh, how can you give it to that garbage? That's garbage. That's crap.
Right.
That's crap. And they make it more about who the filmmaker was, considering the fact that there was thousands upon thousands of people who worked on that movie, who poured their heart and soul into that movie. But instead, we just focus on the filmmaker and how he doesn't deserve it because it's his movie and not anyone else's, even though the entire cast wanted to do that. This is where, or Green Book, where like you take it and you kind of say, instead of just accepting it, yes, it's not a deep movie about racism. It's just it's a black and white friendship story that, yes, it has some moments that if in today's day you kind of consider like kind of offensive, but like it's still enjoyable. You know, it's taking everything so seriously that's destroying this. Joker, oh, the story about the freaking white man, a white man with mental health issues. Oh, we don't want to see that. Like, this is stuff that like people, box office draws, all those movies I named off. And here we have our industry telling people, don't like these movies. They're crap. Don't watch them.
Yeah, and somebody, Erica Mason brings up a good point about Sean Penn was great as Harvey Milk.
Yeah,
I mean, Patrick Stewart played a gay person, and I mean that it's called acting. It's like I'm sure Sean Penn didn't like purposely go out to take a role away from an actor who is gay. You fit the right role for the right actor to make it work. But you're right, Scott. It's why I love talking with you, because it's a very valid point that sometimes what we love, we're almost shamed into not loving the movie, and it shouldn't be that way, because throughout history there's nuances within writers, directors, or even actors who could be assholes, but they made a collaborative effort. Everybody worked together, and they made a movie that the public went out to see and saw and really enjoyed. So that's the bottom line. We shouldn't be shamed into disliking a movie like The Prom because of James Corden.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not fair to the movie. It's not fair. And it's not fair to the other actors.
No.
In the movie either. It's not fair to those creative people. And, you know, I was one that, upon your recommendation, I enjoyed The Prom.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're living in weird times when it comes to movies. I think that's really
what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a disconnect of elevating, you know, a lot of independent films to the Oscar level, which again, I love a lot of independent films, but like Demetri said, like sometimes sitting through a bad independent film is worse than sitting through a bad Hollywood movie. Because it's like, at least Hollywood movies tend to have production value. And sometimes when you're watching those movies, you're just kind of like, wow, like how did they make this? Like, and why like anyone made this? But again, to each their own. That's the best thing. But you have to find a balance of being able to have a Joker and a Bohemian Rhapsody and then being able to have a Nomadland and all of it living in harmony together.
And they can all play in the same sandbox.
And everyone's entitled their opinion. People can, hey, if you love Nomadland, if you really think that Nomadland is the best movie that came out last year, more power to you. I'm happy for you. But like, don't tell someone else that if they like something that maybe is not as critically praised, that they're wrong for liking it. And I think That's what this industry is turning on. It's turning on, you can't like this. This doesn't have enough black people. This doesn't have enough gay people. This doesn't have enough LGBTQ characters. You just sort of have to like evolve. Mm-hmm. And the industry has to do it naturally, as opposed to the way that they're forcing it by checking boxes. Checking boxes doesn't work.
No.
It does not work because it's not natural.
And it doesn't help. And to your point about all these movies, whether they're commercial movies, yes, a franchise picture is going to bring in a lot of box office, right? But in Nomadland, if it lasts in the independent art houses and works its way into AMC's, into Regals and Cinemark, it plays, it adds to that box office. It perpetuates the box office. It perpetuates the movie-going experience. It's part of what makes the movie-going experience great, because there's a variety and people know where to find it. So yeah, you can't be a movie snob either way. You can't be so in tune with commercial movies that you hate independent movies, and you can't be so into independent movies hating commercial movies. If you're a movie fan, you attempt and you go, you see as many movies as you can. You form your opinion, and I'm willing to bet that there are going to be many movies you love, many movies that are in the middle, and many movies you hate.
Yeah. And I just want to say one last thing before we end this episode, because I was actually only expecting this to be short. But I want to actually say something about my friend Eric Weber. So Eric Weber runs a website called Awards Ace, and we had a conversation last night after the Oscars. And we were talking about this, and people probably just assume that it's a negative racist thing. But I did not grow up, and he did not grow up, when I watch a movie when I watch a movie like Booksmart, I didn't look and say, oh my God, Olivia Wilde directed Booksmart. It's the reason I love Booksmart. I love Booksmart because it's a good movie. And everyone in the movie was perfectly cast. The script was sharp. The direction was solid. And when I'm done with it, I say, oh, bonus points. It was directed by Olivia Wilde. It was written by 2 females, and it had an all-female cast. I feel the same way when I watch a movie. I didn't love Waves because it had black people in it. I loved Waves because I loved the story. I loved the direction. I love the cinematography. So I think people get so caught up in the politics nowadays of, is it this person behind the camera? Is it written by this person? Is this person, this character should have been white? This character should have been black? This person should have been Asian? And I'm not saying inclusion 100% matters in this industry. But what needs to happen is that it needs to happen naturally. And you can't just keep like looking at something and judging it and say, Chadwick Boseman should have won because he was black. And that was a really good performance. And then like say someone like Anthony Hopkins shouldn't have won, even though he's a legend and it's a great performance. So like
that was a great performance too.
Right. They're both good. So like it's a toss-up. Like to me, Riz Ahmed also should have been in the conversation. And if any one of those three had won, it would have I'm happy for anyone. It's just like how I feel if like Vanessa Kirby won or Carey Mulligan won, it didn't matter to me. Or Andrea Day, or like at the end of the day, you look at stuff and you kind of say like, yes, that was a really good performance. And that they deserve it. And I don't look at that stuff. And it should just be natural, and it's not. You shouldn't go into a movie because, oh, I'm seeing this because Barry Jenkins directed it. I mean, yes, you can love Barry Jenkins movies, but like that doesn't mean automatically that Barry Jenkins gets a pass if the movie's not good.
Right. And when you look at movies of the past, when you look at movies like Thelma and Louise, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Had a big impact on women in film, right? But people gravitated to that movie because it was a really great story.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott did a great job, and you had 2 wonderful, fantastic performances, Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis. I'm going to bring up another Gina Davis movie real quick, League of Their Own. People didn't go to League of Their Own. Just like they didn't make it like it was a thing. Oh yeah. Oh, it's a movie with all women. Let's go to it. No, they went to League of Their Own because at the end of the movie they felt good, and then they realized, wow, this is a little part of baseball history. Who knew? Penny Marshall directed it, and so people go to movies to be entertained. The other stuff is secondary. So long as they're entertained by the movie, that's all. That's the main important thing. And then you talk about, wow, isn't that amazing that League of Their Own had such an amazing female cast? Isn't Silence of the Lambs amazing? Isn't Jodie Foster amazing? You didn't go to Silence of the Lambs because it was Jodie Foster, albeit she deserves it, but you went because it was a really well made film. It was a horror movie. I mean, people who didn't even watch horror saw Silence of the Lambs, and it was led by a woman. You didn't see Aliens because of Sigourney Weaver. No offense to Sigourney Weaver, but she got nominated for that role, and that's a science fiction horror flick directed by James Cameron. People went to see Aliens. It was a sequel to a popular sci-fi horror flick, and this one was action horror. It delivered the goods. People liked it. You didn't go see Terminator because of Linda Hamilton, albeit it's a great role for her. You went and then you came out and you said, wow, Linda Hamilton kicked ass. Wow, Sigourney Weaver kicked ass. She was so good in that movie. That's why she got nominated. So there are so many great movies that focus that have women, and it's women empowerment. You can add that today, but they were just good movies that audiences gravitated to. So we need to get back to that in one way, shape, or form. We just need to have good movies. And again, I don't care the race, the color, the gender. I just want to walk out going, wow, that was a really great movie. Did you see the performance by that person?
Yep. That's exactly my point, is that when I grew up watching movies, and again, this ties into Tyler Perry's speech, right? Like he said something at the very beginning. He was talking about like helping a Jewish family or something like that. Growing up, racism, I feel, is learned. And the industry, as much as I said, this may sound wrong, say it, like kind of teaches us and reminds us that like we're supposed to look at these things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like we are now forced to judge stuff based on whether it has X, Y, and Z, instead of if it's actually a good movie or the person's talented. It's like Eternals now, I literally hear more about Eternals because Chloe Zhao is directing it than anything about the movie. It's literally, oh, Chloe Zhao is doing this. Chloe Zhao is doing this. It's like, okay, good for her. I'm happy. I just want to know if the movie's good. I don't like if it's not good. I'm going to say it's not good. If it's great, I'll say it's great. But it's not the first thing I think of when I see the Eternals. No. I literally say, oh, that looks good. And then I say, oh, you know who's really looks good in that? Whoever the actress is. And then I say, oh, who is this written by? It's secondary. But we've kind of made it that being forward instead of, I don't know. It's upsetting.
It is upsetting because in a sense we've lost our way of how we used to go to the movies and why.
Yeah.
It was to be entertained. And if they made a great movie with whoever was in the cast, and whether it was male or female, Eddie Murphy, right? And here's the other thing too. We didn't necessarily see 48 Hours because of Eddie Murphy at that time. I mean, it helped, but it was just a damn funny movie.
Right.
Beverly Hills Cop was supposed to be Sylvester Stallone in the Axel Foley role. And then it became Eddie Murphy. He made it a wicked funny movie. That's why there was a part 2. We weren't thinking franchise of that. And there are so many commercial movies that you went to. It didn't matter who the actor was or the actress. You wanted to follow Meryl Streep, who's like royalty today. You know, she's in a she was in such a ton of movies that she could get a fraction of like I think the woman audience is. People didn't go see Kramer versus Kramer because of Meryl Streep necessarily. It was a good emotional. People knew what they were going to get into, and it happened to be a damn good movie. So let's support good movies, and then let's praise the actor or actress for who they are and what they provided to the role, just like we used to. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Scott. I agree 100%. Will Smith was a huge star in the 90s. Nobody cared. Like, no. Like no one cared about his color. It was just because people liked him, and he made Independence Day. He made Men in Black. You didn't go because you were a Tommy Lee Jones fan. You went because it was freaking funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
all right, Demetri. Well, I'll see you on Friday. We'll be back with a brand new episode on Friday, Trending in Hollywood, back at our normal time at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And until next week, until Friday. I'll see you then.
I'll see you then. Thanks for everybody who was online and gave up some really great comments too. So
yes, thank you very much.
It was a really healthy discussion, I think. So it was great. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
Talk to you later, buddy. Bye.
Bye.